The microfiber rag hit my chest with the arrogance of youth and the weight of entitlement. I didn't flinch. I've been in asset recovery for 23 years, and I've learned that the loudest people usually have the most to hide. "Yo, old man, I said wash my Porsche," Blake Voss shouted, his phone camera capturing every second for his 30,000 Instagram followers. The kid couldn't be more than 19, all designer clothes and fake confidence. "Are you deaf or something?" I stood perfectly still in the public car wash bay, my clipboard in hand, watching this boy child perform for his digital audience. The Porsche 911 Carrera gleamed under the morning sun, its custom Blake 19 license plate catching the light. But what caught my attention more was the parking ticket tucked under the windshield wiper, dated 3 days ago from a downtown garage I knew well. "Chat, look at this guy," Blake continued, turning his phone to show me to his viewers. Probably never seen a real car in his life. "Hey Gramps, you gonna stand there all day or what?" My name is Rusty Harrow, but everyone calls me Rusty. At 52, I've seen every type of deadbeat, from desperate single mothers to cocky trust fund babies. Blake Voss was shaping up to be the latter, but something about this whole scene felt off. The car wash attendant was nervous, glancing between Blake and me like he knew something was about to go down. "Sir?" came a familiar voice behind me. Mason Trent, my tow operator, had arrived right on schedule. At 27, Mason had learned the hard way what happens when rich kids flex their connections. He'd lost a good job 3 years back when some politician's son got him fired for attitude problems. Now he worked with me, and he understood the value of patience. Mason walked slowly around the Porsche, his trained eye checking the VIN through the windshield. He caught my attention and gave an almost imperceptible nod. The numbers matched our repo order. "Dude, now there's 2 of them," Blake laughed into his camera. "It's like a convention for losers. Hey, camera guy, you getting this?" Devin Park, Blake's 22-year-old videographer, held a professional camera steady, capturing multiple angles. The kid looked uncomfortable, but kept filming. In my experience, the camera operators usually had more sense than their employers. "Blake, maybe we should—" Devin started. "Nah, this is content gold," Blake cut him off. "Chat's loving this. Look, we're already at 200 viewers and climbing." I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app, typing in the license plate number, the time, and the location. The parking ticket was issued downtown at the Meridian Tower garage. Interesting, since Blake lived in the Riverside condos on the opposite side of town. I photographed the ticket through the windshield. "Yo, what are you doing?" Oh, Blake stepped closer, his phone still recording. "You taking pictures of my car? That's weird, dude. Chat, this old guy's being a creep." I looked up from my phone and made direct eye contact with Blake for the first time. "Just doing my job, son." "Your job?" Blake laughed. "What job? You're like a car wash attendant or something. Your job is to make my Porsche sparkle." Mason finished his walk around and came back to my side. He'd been in this business long enough to read situations. "Everything checks out, Rusty," he said quietly. Blake's camera caught the exchange. "Oh, they know each other. Plot twist. Are you guys like a team of professional car washers? That's actually kind of sad." The comments on his live stream were flying by, mostly laughing emojis and fire symbols, but I noticed a few people asking questions. "Why won't the old guy move? What's he writing down? Is that a repo truck?" That last comment made me smile slightly. At least someone in Blake's audience had working brain cells. "All right, enough entertainment," Blake announced to his phone. "Old man, you've got 30 seconds to start washing, or I'm calling security." I closed my notes app and opened my work email, sending a quick message to Joe Lynn, our paralegal. "Voss account. Need full file review. Something's not adding up." Blake was getting agitated now. The attention wasn't going the way he'd planned. "Are you seriously ignoring me right now? Do you know who I am?" "Blake Voss," I said calmly. 19 years old, lives at Riverside Condos, Unit 4B. The kid's face went pale for just a second before the bravado returned. "So you do know me. Then you know my dad owns half this city." "Gerald Voss, Voss Holdings LLC, Commercial Real Estate Development." I kept my voice level and professional. "I know exactly who you are, Blake." Devin lowered his camera slightly. "Blake, maybe we should go—" "No way," Blake snapped. "This is getting good. Chat's going crazy." He held up his phone to show the viewer count climbing past 500. "See that, old man? 500 people watching you embarrass yourself." My phone buzzed with a text from Joe. "Voss account flagged for review. Can you come in after lunch?" I typed back, "On my way in 20. "What's so important on your phone?" Blake demanded. "You got a hot date with your wife at the senior center?" Mason stepped forward slightly. Kid, you might want to dial it back. Or what? Blake laughed. You'll wash my car harder? The car wash attendant finally spoke up. Excuse me, but if you're not using the bay, other customers are waiting. Blake spun around. I paid for 30 minutes. I've got 25 left. He turned back to his camera. Okay, chat, let's make this interesting. I'm going to give Gramps here one more chance to earn a tip. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a $20 bill, waving it in front of the camera. $20 says this old guy won't even touch my car. He's probably too intimidated. I looked at the Porsche one more time, noting the small details. The registration sticker in the corner of the windshield looked fresh, but something about it seemed off. The insurance card visible on the dashboard had a policy number that looked suspiciously generic. You know what, Blake? I said, finally addressing him directly. You're right about one thing. Yeah? What's that? I won't be touching your car. I turned to Mason. Let's head back to the office. Blake's face lit up with triumph. That's what I thought. Chat, did you see that? Dude totally backed down. He held the 20 up to the camera. Easiest money I never had to spend. As Mason and I walked toward our trucks, I heard Blake still talking to his audience. That's how you handle disrespect, guys. You stand your ground and people back down. That's alpha energy right there. Devin was packing up his camera equipment, shaking his head. The kid had better instincts than his employer. Rusty, Mason said quietly as we reached our vehicles. That boy has no idea what's coming, does he? I looked back at Blake, still performing for his camera, still completely unaware that I wasn't a car wash attendant. Not yet, but he will. My phone buzzed again. Joe had sent a follow-up text. Just pulled the Voss file. You're going to want to see this. Something's definitely wrong with their payment history. I climbed into my truck and reached for my coffee mug from the cup holder. It was a gag gift from the office Christmas party. Asset recovery is sexy, in bold letters. Joe thought it was hilarious. I'd grown fond of it. As I started the engine, I could hear Blake wrapping up his live stream. All right, chat. That's enough content for today. Don't forget to follow and share this video. Tomorrow we're doing the Porsche tour, so you'll get to see every detail of this beauty. I pulled out of the car wash and headed toward the office, already planning my next moves. In my rearview mirror, I watched Blake taking selfies with his Porsche, completely oblivious to the fact that his 90 days were almost up. 23 years in this business had taught me that the cockiest ones always fell the hardest. The Riverside Cafe was Joe Lynn's favorite meeting spot, tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner where the downtown lunch crowd couldn't overhear sensitive conversations. I arrived first, ordering black coffee and claiming our usual corner table. Jo walked in 5 minutes later, a manila folder under her arm and her laptop bag slung over her shoulder. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Worse, I've seen a viral TikTok video of myself." Jo raised an eyebrow. "The car wash incident?" I nodded. "Blake posted it last night. 47,000 views and counting. Comments range from, 'That old guy got owned,' to, 'Why does he look familiar?' Well, at least some people have good instincts." Jo opened her folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "Speaking of instincts, you were right to flag the Voss account. Nothing about this loan makes sense." She spread several documents across the table. The first was a DMV title search printout, the kind that took favors and patience to obtain. The Porsche isn't titled to Blake Voss. It's registered under Voss Holdings LLC, which is Gerald's company. So Daddy bought Junior a toy. That's what I thought initially. Jo flipped to the next page. But look at this insurance document from their file. I studied the paper. The policy number looked exactly like what I'd glimpsed on Blake's dashboard, but something was off about the formatting. This looks generic. Because it is. I called the insurance company this morning. That policy number doesn't exist in their system. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Forged documents? That's my guess, and it gets weirder. Jo pulled out another paper. The parking spot where Blake keeps the car? It's not registered to Unit 4B. According to the condo association, it belongs to Unit 7A, which is currently vacant and up for sale. I leaned back in my chair, processing the implications. So Blake is using a parking spot that doesn't belong to him, driving a car that's not in his name, with insurance that doesn't exist. And making payments that stopped coming in 37 days ago? Wait. I held up a hand. The file shows 90 days overdue, but you're saying payments stopped 37 days ago? Jo smiled grimly. Someone was making payments on Blake's behalf until 37 days ago. The bank records show wire transfers from Voss Holdings LLC business account directly to the loan servicer. Then they stopped. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. "There's more," Joe continued. "I pulled the HOA records for the Riverside condos. Blake's been cited 3 times in the past 2 months for disruptive filming activities and unauthorized commercial use of common areas." "Let me guess. His social media stunts." "Exactly. The condo board president, a woman named Eileen Mott, has been documenting everything. She sent me a very detailed email this morning after I called asking about the parking situation." My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time I answered. "Russell Harrow." "Mr. Harrow, this is Gerald Voss. I think we need to talk." I looked at Joe and mouthed, "Blake's father." She immediately started recording on her phone. "What can I do for you, Mr. Voss?" "I think there's been some confusion regarding my son's vehicle. I understand you had some kind of altercation with Blake yesterday." "No altercation. I was doing my job." "And what job is that exactly?" Gerald's voice had an edge to it. "Asset recovery. Your son's loan is currently 90 days past due, which puts the vehicle in default status." There was a long pause. "I think you have your facts wrong, Mr. Harrow. Blake's payments are current. According to our records, the last payment was received 37 days ago." Another pause. "There must be some kind of processing error. I'll have my accountant look into it." "You do that. In the meantime, the default clock keeps ticking." "Mr. Harrow, I don't think you understand who you're dealing with. I have significant relationships in this city. I'd hate for this to become complicated." I looked at Joe, who was still recording. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Voss?" "I'm simply suggesting that mistakes can be costly. For everyone involved." "I appreciate the advice. Have a good day, Mr. Voss." I hung up and Joe stopped recording. "Well, that was subtle," she said. "As subtle as a brick through a window." I finished my coffee. "What else do you have in that folder?" Bank records show the wire transfers were coming from a Voss Holdings business account. But here's the interesting part. The business account shows a significant drop in available funds over the past 3 months. Gerald's been moving money around, probably trying to keep his son's lifestyle funded while his own projects struggle. And now, the well's run dry? Exactly, but Blake doesn't know that. Look at this. Joe pulled out her phone and opened Instagram. He posted this 2 hours ago. The video showed Blake in what looked like a professional recording studio, complete with ring lights and fake trophies on shelves behind him. He was holding the keys to the Porsche and grinning at the camera. "What's up, Blake Squad? After yesterday's hilarious encounter with that weird old guy at the car wash, I thought I'd show you what real success looks like." He dangled the keys. "These are the keys to my Porsche 911. Not daddy's, not borrowed, mine. Fully paid for, fully insured, fully awesome." The video had been up for 2 hours and already had 15,000 views. The comments were mostly fire emojis and praise, but I noticed a few skeptical voices. "Why did that old guy seem so interested in your car? What was he writing down? That looked like a repo guy to me." "Kid's digging his own grave," I muttered. Speaking of graves, I found something else interesting. Joe pulled out a parking ticket. This was issued 3 days ago at the Meridian Tower garage downtown. I called the garage. They have security cameras. "And?" "The car was parked there for 6 hours on a Tuesday afternoon, but according to Blake's social media posts, he was supposedly filming content at his condo that same day." I studied the ticket. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m. on Tuesday. So either Blake can be in 2 places at once, or someone else was driving his car. "My money's on Daddy Dearest." My phone buzzed with a text from Mason. "Just drove by the Riverside condos. Porsche is in the garage, but something's off about the parking setup. Looks like there's some kind of argument happening." I showed Joe the message. "Want to take a field trip?" "Absolutely." We paid for our coffee and drove separately to the Riverside condos. The building was one of those modern glass and steel structures that tried too hard to look expensive. The parking garage was underground, accessed by a key card system. Mason was waiting by the entrance, leaning against his tow truck. "Rusty, you're not going to believe this. The parking attendant, guy named Julio, just told me the most interesting story." Julio Reyes emerged from the security booth, a man in his early 40s with the weathered look of someone who'd seen everything. "You the repo man?" "I'm Russell Harrow, yes." "Julio Reyes. I've been working this garage for 8 years. That kid Blake? He's trouble." "How so?" "First off, he's parking in a spot that doesn't belong to his unit. I've told him multiple times, but he just waves me off. Says his dad owns the building." "Does his dad own the building?" Julio shook his head. His dad's company has some kind of lease agreement for commercial space on the ground floor, but he doesn't own anything. Kid's been lying. What else? Last week, some guy in a suit came down here with the kid's father. They were arguing about money, something about late payments and business accounts. The suit guy looked like a lawyer or a banker. Joe stepped forward. Did you hear any specifics? The suit guy said something about cross-collateral and business loans. Gerald, that's the father. He looked scared. Really scared. Cross-collateral, Joe repeated. That means Blake's car loan is tied to Gerald's business loans, I finished. If one defaults, they all default. Julio nodded. There's something else. 3 nights ago, Gerald came down here around midnight. Thought nobody was watching, but I was doing rounds. He unplugged one of the security cameras. Which camera? The one that covers Blake's parking spot. Mason whistled low. That's not suspicious at all. Can you show us the footage from the other cameras? Joe asked. I'd need permission from the building management, but Julio looked around and lowered his voice. The building manager is Eileen Mott. She's also the condo board president, and she really doesn't like the Voss family. Why not? Blake's been using the common areas to film his videos without permission. Last month he threw some kind of party in the lobby and invited 50 people. Eileen had to call the police to break it up. My phone buzzed with another unknown number. This time it was a text. Stop harassing my son, or you'll regret it. Gerald Voss. I showed the message to Joe and Mason. He's getting desperate. Good, Joe said. Desperate people make mistakes. As if on cue, we heard the rumble of a sports car engine echoing through the garage. Blake's Porsche came screeching down the ramp, music blasting from the open windows. He parked in the disputed spot and climbed out, immediately pulling out his phone to start filming. What's up, Blake Squad? Just got back from the most amazing lunch at Chez Laurent. Check out this parking job. He filmed the Porsche from multiple angles, completely oblivious to the fact that we were watching from 30 feet away. That restaurant's been closed for renovations for 2 weeks, Julio whispered. Blake was still filming when his phone rang. We could hear his side of the conversation clearly in the echoing garage. Yeah, Dad, I'm at the condo. No, I haven't seen any repo guys. What do you mean stop posting about the car? Dad, you're being paranoid. Oh, fine, whatever. I'll be more careful. He hung up and immediately started filming again. Sorry about that, guys. Family drama, you know how it is. Anyway, tomorrow I'm planning something special for the channel. It's going to be epic. Blake finished his video and headed for the elevator, never noticing us in the shadows. Kids living in a fantasy world, Mason observed. For now, I said. Joe, how long until we can legally proceed with repossession? Joe checked her phone. Today is day 87, 3 more days. And what happens when we repo the car? If it's cross-collateralized with Gerald's business loans, the bank will automatically trigger a full audit of Voss Holdings. Every account, every transaction, every wire transfer. I smiled for the first time all day. So we're not just taking Blake's toy away. We're potentially taking down Gerald's entire operation, Joe confirmed. Julio looked impressed. That kid has no idea what's coming. No, I agreed. But he will. The law firm of Blackstone and Associates occupied 3 floors of a downtown tower, all marble and mahogany designed to intimidate. I'd been summoned by Gerald Voss's attorney, a man named Richard Blackstone, who apparently thought expensive suits could substitute for actual legal arguments. I sat in the leather chair across from Blackstone's massive desk, my worn clipboard and manila folder looking distinctly out of place among his gold-plated accessories. The lawyer was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with the kind of artificial tan that screamed, I vacation in the Hamptons. Mr. Harrow, I'll be direct, Blackstone began, adjusting his silk tie. My client believes there's been some misunderstanding regarding his son's vehicle loan. No misunderstanding. The loan is 90 days past due as of tomorrow. That's where you're wrong. Blackstone opened a folder and pulled out what looked like a bank statement. Mr. Voss has documentation showing all payments are current. I glanced at the paper he slid across the desk. It was obviously fabricated. The formatting was wrong, the bank routing numbers didn't match our records, and the dates had been altered. This is interesting paperwork, Mr. Blackstone. I'm glad you think so. Now, regarding this harassment of my client's son... Harassment? Following him to public locations, photographing his vehicle without permission, intimidating him at his place of residence? I kept my voice level. I've been conducting routine asset verification as required by law. Your client's son has been 90 days delinquent on his loan payments. Blackstone leaned back in his chair. Mr. Harrow, do you know what cross-collateralization means? The question caught me off guard. Why would Gerald's lawyer bring up the very thing that would hurt his client the most? I'm familiar with the term. then you understand that any action you take regarding the vehicle could have broader implications for my client's business interests. I studied Blackstone's face. The man was nervous, trying to sound threatening, but clearly out of his depth. Are you saying the vehicle is cross-collateralized with other loans? I'm saying you should be very careful about the actions you take. My client has significant business relationships in this city. Banks, politicians, developers. It would be unfortunate if your enthusiasm for this case caused problems for your employer. I closed my folder and stood up. Mr. Blackstone, I appreciate the warning, but I have a job to do, and I'm going to do it. Mr. Harrow, please sit down. We're not finished. Yes, we are. I headed for the door. When your client is ready to discuss actual payment arrangements, he can call our office directly. As I waited for the elevator, I heard Blackstone on the phone behind his closed door. His voice was agitated, though I couldn't make out the words. Whatever Gerald Voss was paying him, it wasn't enough. My next stop was First National Bank, where our loan was originally processed. The bank manager, Patricia Williams, was an old friend from my early days in collections. She'd moved up to management while I'd stayed in the field, but we'd maintained a professional relationship built on mutual respect. Rusty, Patricia greeted me warmly. I heard you might be stopping by. The Voss account? That's the one. Something's not adding up. Patricia led me to her private office and closed the door. I pulled the file this morning after Joe called. You're right to be suspicious. She opened her computer and turned the screen toward me. Look at the payment history. For the first year, payments came directly from Blake Voss's personal account. Small account, probably funded by Daddy, but legitimate payments. And then? 18 months ago, the payments started coming from Voss Holdings LLC business account. Much larger transfers, always on time, always the exact amount. Until 37 days ago. Exactly. But here's the interesting part. 3 days ago, Gerald Voss tried to wire a payment to catch up the account. The transfer was denied. I leaned forward. Denied why? Insufficient funds. The Voss Holdings business account is essentially empty. But that's not the weird part. There's a weird part? Patricia clicked to another screen. 2 hours after the denied transfer, someone tried to wire money from a different account, personal account belonging to Gerald Voss. That transfer was also denied. Also insufficient funds? No, the account was frozen by court order. Apparently Gerald's involved in some kind of civil litigation with a former business partner. All personal assets are tied up pending resolution. I sat back in my chair, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. So Gerald can't access his personal money, his business is broke, and his son's car payment is 90 days overdue. That's the situation. But Rusty, there's something else you need to know about the cross-collateralization clause. I'm listening. Blake's car loan was bundled with a much larger commercial loan for one of Gerald's development projects. If the car goes into default, it triggers a mandatory audit of the entire commercial loan package. How large is the commercial loan? Patricia checked her screen. $2.7 million. I whistled low. And if that goes into default, Gerald loses everything. The development project, his business assets, probably his house. Everything is interconnected. So by repossessing Blake's car, you're potentially destroying Gerald's entire financial empire. No wonder Gerald was getting desperate. This wasn't about a teenager's toy car anymore. This was about a man's entire life's work hanging by a thread. My phone buzzed with a text from Devin, Blake's videographer. Need to talk. Something's not right. Meet me at Central Park, North Entrance, 3 p.m. I showed the message to Patricia. Blake's camera guy wants to meet. That's unexpected. Yeah, but potentially useful. I left the bank with a copy of the denied wire transfer receipt, time-stamped and official. Patricia had bent the rules to give it to me, but we both knew this case was bigger than normal protocol. Central Park at 3 p.m. was busy with joggers and dog walkers. I found Devin sitting on a bench near the north entrance, his expensive camera bag at his feet. The kid looked nervous, constantly checking his phone and glancing around like he expected to be followed. Mr. Harrow? He stood up as I approached. Thanks for meeting me. What's on your mind, Devin? Blake's lying, about everything. Devin sat back down, and I joined him on the bench. I've been filming with him for 8 months, and something changed about 6 weeks ago. Changed how? He got paranoid. Started asking me to edit out certain things, delete footage that showed him getting phone calls from his dad, and the car thing. What about the car? Devin pulled out his phone and opened a video file. This is from last week. Blake didn't know I was still recording. The video showed Blake on the phone in his condo, pacing back and forth. The audio was clear. Dad, I don't care about your business problems. What do you mean the payment stopped? No, I'm not giving up the car. Figure it out. That's your job. Devin stopped the video. That's when I started paying attention. Blake's been telling his followers that he bought the car himself, that it's fully paid off, but clearly his dad's been making the payments. Why are you telling me this? Because I looked you up after the car wash incident. You're not just some random guy. You're a repo agent. Devin looked directly at me. Blake has no idea what's coming, does he? What makes you think something's coming? His dad called him this morning, screaming about some lawyer meeting. Blake was freaking out, asking if he should hide the car somewhere. And? His dad told him to act normal, keep posting content, pretend everything's fine. But Blake's scared, really scared. I studied Devin's face. The kid seemed genuinely concerned, not just looking for drama to film. Devin, can I ask you something? Why do you work for Blake? Honestly, the money's good, and I need portfolio pieces for film school applications. But lately, he trailed off. Lately what? Lately I feel like I'm documenting someone's breakdown in real time. Blake's been getting more aggressive, more desperate for views and engagement. Yesterday, after you guys left the car wash, he spent 2 hours editing the video to make himself look better. What did he edit out? The part where you clearly knew his name and address. The part where your partner checked the VIN number. The part where Blake looked genuinely scared for about 30 seconds. Devin pulled up the original unedited footage on his phone. In this version, Blake's bravado faltered noticeably when I demonstrated knowledge of his personal information. The kid had looked genuinely rattled. He posted the edited version to make himself look like some kind of alpha hero who scared off 2 random guys. But I've got the real footage. Why are you keeping the real footage? Because I'm starting to think Blake's been lying about a lot of things. And if this all goes bad, I want documentation that shows what really happened. My phone rang. Joe's number. Excuse me, I need to take this. I answered the call. What's up, Joe? Rusty, where are you? We've got a problem. What kind of problem? Eileen Mott from the condo board just called. Blake's throwing some kind of party in the building's rooftop event space tomorrow night. He's calling it a milestone celebration, and he's live streaming the whole thing. So tomorrow is day 90. If we're going to repo the car, tomorrow night would be the perfect time. Maximum witnesses, maximum public exposure. I looked at Devin, who was clearly listening to my side of the conversation. Joe, let me call you back in 5 minutes. I hung up and turned to Devin. Hypothetical question. If Blake was about to face some serious consequences for his actions, would you want to be there filming it? Devin's eyes widened. You're going to repo his car tomorrow night, aren't you, at his party? I didn't say that. But you're thinking it. Devin was quiet for a moment. Mr. Harrow, Blake's been treating people like garbage for months. His followers, his neighbors, service workers, everyone. Maybe it's time someone taught him a lesson. Are you offering to help? I'm offering to document whatever happens, accurately and completely. I stood up from the bench. Devin, if you're serious about this, there are some things you need to understand. What's about to happen to Blake isn't just about the car. It's much bigger than that. How much bigger? Big enough to destroy his father's business and possibly land both of them in legal trouble. Devin absorbed this information. And you want me to film it? I want you to film the truth, whatever that turns out to be. Then I'm in. I gave Devin my business card. If Blake asks you to film anything unusual in the next 24 hours, you call me immediately. And Devin? Yeah? Keep that original footage safe. Something tells me we're going to need it. As I walked back to my truck, I called Joe. Okay, tell me about this party. Blake's rented the rooftop event space for tomorrow night. He's expecting about 100 people, plus however many are watching the live stream. He's calling it his Rise to the Top celebration. Rise to the top of what? According to his social media, he's celebrating reaching 50,000 followers and announcing some kind of major business venture. What business venture? That's the interesting part. I did some digging, and Blake filed paperwork last week to start his own social media marketing company. Guess who he listed as the primary investor? His father. Bingo. Gerald Voss is supposedly putting up $500,000 in startup capital for Blake's new business. Money that he doesn't have. Money that he definitely doesn't have. Rusty, I think Blake has no idea how broke his father really is. He's planning this big celebration based on promises that Gerald can't possibly keep. I reached my truck and climbed inside, my mind racing through the implications. Joe, what time does the party start? 8 p.m., rooftop of the Riverside Condos building. And what time do we legally have the right to repossess the vehicle? As of midnight tonight, we'll have full legal authority. Then I guess we're going to a party. The DMV office on 5th Street was never pleasant, but Joe had connections that made impossible things possible. We sat across from Maria Santos, a clerk who owed Joe a favor from a previous case involving a fraudulent title transfer. "This is highly irregular," Maria said, pulling up the records on her computer screen. "But given the circumstances—" "What circumstances?" I asked. Joe leaned forward. "Maria, show him the insurance verification." Maria turned her monitor toward us. The screen showed Blake's Porsche registration, including the insurance policy information. But where there should have been a valid policy number, there was a red flag indicator. "This policy number was reported as fraudulent 6 months ago," Maria explained. "The insurance company flagged it as part of a document forgery ring. Whoever created this paperwork used a template from stolen policies." "So Blake's been driving without valid insurance for 6 months? Worse than that. The DMV requires valid insurance to maintain registration. Technically, his car registration should have been suspended." Joe pulled out her phone and opened a voice recording app. "Maria, for the record, can you confirm that the vehicle registration for license plate Blake 19 is currently invalid due to fraudulent insurance documentation?" Maria looked nervous. "I can't make official statements without—" "Off the record, then, as a professional opinion." "Off the record? That car shouldn't be on the road. The registration is invalid, the insurance is fake, and if someone reported it, the vehicle would be impounded immediately." I exchanged a look with Joe. "What would it take to report it?" "Any law enforcement officer who ran the plates would see the red flags, or—" Maria hesitated. "Or what?" "Or if the vehicle was involved in a repossession action, the repo agent could request immediate DMV verification, which would trigger an automatic review." "And how long would that review take?" "About 10 minutes. Maybe less." Joe smiled. "Maria, you've been incredibly helpful." As we left the DMV, Joe was already making calls. "Patricia, it's Joe Lynn. I need you to prepare the repossession paperwork for tomorrow night." "Yes, I know it's unusual timing. Trust me, you'll want to be there for this." My phone buzzed with a text from Mason. "Tow truck prepped and ready. Julio says the rooftop party is already being set up. The kid's going all out." I called Mason back. "How all out are we talking?" "Professional DJ, catering, decorations, the works. Blake's treating this like some kind of coronation ceremony." "Any sign of Gerald?" "Funny you should ask. Julio saw him about an hour ago, arguing with some guy in a suit in the parking garage. Looked heated." "Could you hear what they were saying?" "Something about wire transfers and deadlines. The suit guy kept checking his watch and shaking his head." After hanging up with Mason, I drove to the Riverside condos to do my own reconnaissance. The building was buzzing with activity, caterers carrying supplies, a DJ testing sound equipment on the rooftop, and Blake himself directing traffic like some kind of general. I parked across the street and watched through binoculars as Blake filmed himself giving a tour of the party setup. Even from a distance, I could see he was more animated than usual, almost manic in his enthusiasm. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized Gerald Voss's voice immediately. "Harrow, we need to talk. Now." "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Meet me at the coffee shop on Elm Street in 20 minutes. Come alone." The line went dead. I called Joe to let her know where I was going, then drove to the meeting spot. Gerald Voss looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his tie was loose, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He was already seated at a corner table when I arrived, nervously stirring a cup of coffee that had probably gone cold an hour ago. "Harrow?" He didn't stand up or offer to shake hands. "Mr. Voss." I sat down across from him. "You wanted to talk." "I want to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" Gerald reached into his jacket and pulled out a check. "This covers Blake's entire loan balance, plus late fees and penalties. Take it and walk away." I looked at the check. It was made out for the correct amount, but something about it felt wrong. "What bank is this drawn on?" "That's not your concern." "Actually, it is. If this check bounces, your son's situation gets much worse." Gerald's jaw tightened. "The check is good." "Mr. Voss, I'm going to be direct with you. I know about the denied wire transfers. I know about your frozen personal accounts. I know about the civil litigation that's tied up your assets." Gerald's face went pale. "How do you—" "I do my homework. So let me ask you again. What bank is this check drawn on?" Gerald was quiet for a long moment. "It's a business account." "The same business account that's been empty for over a month?" "I transferred funds this morning." "From where?" Another long pause. "That's not your business." I slid the check back across the table. "Mr. Voss, I can't accept payment that I know will be rejected. It would just make the situation worse for everyone." Harrow, you don't understand. If you repo that car tomorrow night... What? What happens tomorrow night? Gerald looked around the coffee shop nervously. Blake's announcing a business partnership. He's telling his followers that I'm investing in his new company, $500,000. Money you don't have. Money I'll have once my current legal issues are resolved. This is just a temporary cash flow problem. I leaned back in my chair. Mr. Voss, your son is about to promise 50,000 people something you can't deliver, and he's doing it while driving a car with fraudulent insurance and an invalid registration. Gerald's eyes widened. What do you mean, fraudulent insurance? You didn't know. The insurance policy on Blake's car is fake. Has been for months. The DMV flagged it as part of a forgery ring. That's impossible. I helped him get that policy. From who? Some agent Blake found online. Said he could get a better rate than the traditional companies. I pulled out my phone and showed Gerald the DMV screen capture Joe had sent me. This is what comes up when anyone runs Blake's plates, red flags everywhere. Gerald stared at the screen, his face growing paler by the second. Oh God, Blake has no idea. No idea about what? The insurance, the loan status, any of it. He thinks everything is fine. He thinks I've been handling everything. Haven't you been handling everything? I've been trying to, but the business has been struggling for months. The civil lawsuit froze my personal accounts. I've been robbing Peter to pay Paul, and now Peter and Paul are both broke. Gerald put his head in his hands. If Blake announces that business partnership tomorrow night, and then the money doesn't materialize, he'll be humiliated in front of 50,000 people. Worse than that, he'll probably face fraud charges, promising investment money that doesn't exist, using fake insurance documents, driving an unregistered vehicle. I studied Gerald's face. Despite everything, the man genuinely seemed to care about his son. Mr. Voss, why didn't you tell Blake the truth? Because he's 19 years old and he thinks he's invincible. I kept thinking I could fix everything before he found out. I kept thinking the lawsuit would settle, or the business would turn around, or someone else would solve your problems for you. Gerald looked up at me. Harrow, what if I could get the money? Real money, from a legitimate source? Where? I have a property in Florida, a vacation home, no mortgage. I could sell it, wire the funds directly. How long would that take? 2 weeks, maybe 3. I shook my head. Mr. Voss, Blake's party is tomorrow night. The loan is officially in default as of midnight tonight. I can't wait 2 or 3 weeks. But if I could guarantee the money, you can't guarantee anything. You've been making promises to your son for months that you couldn't keep. How is this any different? Gerald was quiet for a long moment. Because this time, I'm not promising Blake. I'm promising you. And you'll know exactly where the money is coming from. Mr. Voss, even if I wanted to help you, which I'm not saying I do, I can't stop a legal repossession based on a promise of future payment. Then what can you do? I can do my job. Tomorrow night, when your son's loan officially hits 90 days overdue, I can repossess the vehicle according to the terms of the contract he signed. Gerald stood up abruptly. You're going to destroy my son's life over a car payment. No, Mr. Voss, you destroyed your son's life by lying to him for months about money you didn't have. I'm just cleaning up the mess. As I walked back to my truck, Gerald called after me. Harrow, what if I told Blake the truth? Tonight? What if I explained everything and we canceled the party? I turned around. Then you'd be doing something you should have done months ago. But would it change anything? Would you still repo the car? The car goes back to the bank, Mr. Voss. That's not negotiable. But if Blake knew the truth beforehand, at least he wouldn't be blindsided in front of 50,000 people. Gerald looked defeated. He'll never forgive me. Maybe not, but at least he'll know who his real enemy is. I drove back to the office, where Joe was waiting with a stack of paperwork and a grim expression. How did it go with Gerald? He offered me a check that would definitely bounce, then tried to buy time with promises he can't keep. So we're still on for tomorrow night. We're still on. But Joe, there's something you need to know. Gerald claims he had no idea about the fraudulent insurance. Says Blake found some sketchy online agent. Joe raised an eyebrow. You believe him? I think Gerald's been lying to himself as much as he's been lying to Blake. But the insurance fraud? That might be all on Blake. Which means Blake could be facing criminal charges on top of everything else. Exactly. This isn't just about a repo anymore. This is about a 19-year-old kid who's been living in a fantasy world built on lies, and tomorrow night reality comes crashing down. Joe was quiet for a moment. Rusty, are you having second thoughts? I thought about Blake throwing that rag at me, demanding I wash his car while filming it for his followers. I thought about his arrogance, his entitlement, his complete disregard for anyone he considered beneath him. No second thoughts. Blake made his choices. Tomorrow night, he lives with the consequences. The night before a major repossession, I always followed the same ritual. Check the truck, review the paperwork, confirm the backup plans, and try to get some sleep. But this case felt different, bigger, more consequential. I sat in my truck outside the office at 9 p.m., going through the files one more time. The Voss folder had grown thick over the past few days. Bank records, DMV reports, insurance fraud documentation, HOA violation notices, and security footage timestamps. Everything was meticulously organized and legally bulletproof. Mason knocked on my passenger window. "Mind if I join you for the pregame show?" I unlocked the door, and he climbed in, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the 24-hour diner down the street. "Thanks." I took the coffee gratefully. "You nervous?" "About tomorrow?" "Nah, I've been looking forward to this since that punk threw a rag at you." Mason sipped his coffee. "You nervous?" "Not nervous, just aware of how big this is going to be." "How big are we talking?" I pulled out my phone and showed him Blake's latest Instagram post. The video had been uploaded an hour ago and already had 12,000 views. Blake was standing on the rooftop of his building, the city lights twinkling behind him, talking directly to the camera with manic enthusiasm. "Blake Squad, tomorrow night is going to be legendary. I'm announcing something that's going to change everything. New business, new opportunities, new levels of success, and the best part? It's all happening live, right here on this rooftop. 50,000 followers and counting, and you're all invited to witness history." The comments were flowing fast, mostly excitement and speculation about what Blake was planning to announce. "Kid has no idea what's coming," Mason observed. "None whatsoever. And in about 3 hours, it becomes legally inevitable." My phone buzzed with a text from Joe. "All paperwork filed with the court. Repo authorization active at midnight. Bank audit triggered automatically upon vehicle recovery. Everything's locked and loaded." I showed Mason the message. Joe's been working late to make sure every detail is perfect. "What happens to Gerald's business when the audit starts?" "Everything gets frozen while they examine the books. If they find evidence of fraud or misappropriation of funds, it becomes a criminal matter." "And Blake?" "Depends on how much he knew about the insurance fraud. If he was just a naive kid following bad advice, he might get off with fines and community service. If he was actively involved in the forgery, prison time. Possible. But honestly, I think Blake's biggest punishment is going to be the public humiliation. His entire online persona is built on being successful and wealthy. When that image collapses in front of 50,000 people..." Mason was quiet for a moment. "You ever feel bad about this part of the job?" "Taking cars from people who can't afford them. Sometimes. But this case is different." "How so?" Blake had every opportunity to handle this responsibly. He could have talked to his father about the financial problems. He could have sold the car and bought something he could actually afford. He could have been honest with his followers about his situation. Instead, he doubled down on the lies. And treated everyone around him like garbage in the process. My phone rang. Eileen Mott from the condo board. "Mr. Harrow, I hope I'm not calling too late." "Not at all, Mrs. Mott. What can I do for you?" "I wanted to confirm that you'll be here tomorrow evening. The board has decided to attend Blake's party." "All of you?" "All 5 board members. We've been documenting Blake's violations of building policies for months. Tomorrow night, we're going to present him with a formal notice of lease termination." "You're evicting him?" "His lease allows for termination due to repeated violations of community standards. Unauthorized commercial filming, disruptive events, illegal use of parking facilities. We have grounds." I looked at Mason, who was listening with interest. "Mrs. Mott, are you planning to serve this notice during his live stream?" "That's exactly what we're planning. Blake has humiliated this building and its residents with his behavior. It's time he experienced some consequences." "Ma'am, I appreciate the heads up. Just so you know, we'll be conducting our own business tomorrow evening as well." "The repossession?" "Yes, Julio mentioned you might be there. Mr. Harrow, I want you to know that the board fully supports your actions. Blake has been a nightmare tenant." After hanging up, Mason shook his head. "Kids getting hit from all sides." "That's what happens when you burn bridges with everyone around you." My phone buzzed with another message, this one from Devin. "Blake just asked me to bring extra batteries and memory cards tomorrow. Says he wants to capture every moment of his triumph. Should I warn him?" I typed back, "Just document everything honestly. The truth will speak for itself." Devin responded immediately. "Will do. BTW, Blake's dad showed up an hour ago. They're arguing in Blake's condo, sounds intense. Can you hear what they're saying? Blake keeps shouting, "You promised." Gerald sounds like he's crying. Mason read the messages over my shoulder. Think Gerald's finally telling him the truth? Doubt it. More likely he's trying to figure out how to delay the inevitable. At 11:30 p.m., I drove to the Riverside condos for one final reconnaissance. The building was mostly dark except for the rooftop, where work lights illuminated the party setup. I could see Blake and Gerald on the roof, gesturing animatedly at each other. Julio emerged from the security booth as I parked. They've been at it for 2 hours, he said, nodding toward the roof. Any idea what they are discussing? Money, from what I can hear. Blake keeps asking about the business investment, and Gerald keeps saying, "Tomorrow, we'll figure it out tomorrow." What about the party setup? Professional grade everything. DJ booth, catering stations, even a red carpet leading from the elevator. Kids spending serious money on this event. Money he doesn't have. Money his dad doesn't have either, from the sound of things. I checked my watch. 11:45 p.m. In 15 minutes, Blake's loan would officially hit 90 days overdue, and we'd have full legal authority to repossess the vehicle. Julio, tomorrow night's going to be chaotic. Are you prepared for that? Mr. Harrow, I've been working security for 8 years. I've seen drug busts, domestic violence calls, and 3 alarm fires. I think I can handle one spoiled teenager having a meltdown. This might be bigger than a meltdown. Good. Kids had it coming for a long time. At exactly midnight, my phone chimed with an automated message from our legal department. Vehicle repo authorization now active. VIN, Blake's Porsche number. Proceed when operationally ready. I took a deep breath and started my truck. Tomorrow night, Blake Voss was going to learn that actions have consequences and that real power doesn't need to announce itself on social media. Mason called as I drove home. It's official? It's official. Tomorrow night we take the car. And destroy Gerald's business empire in the process. That's just a side effect. The real goal is teaching Blake that the world doesn't revolve around his camera phone. Think he'll learn the lesson? One way or another, he'll never forget it. As I pulled into my driveway, I thought about Blake up on that rooftop, probably still arguing with his father, completely unaware that his 90 days of grace had just expired. In less than 24 hours, his carefully constructed fantasy world would come crashing down in front of thousands of witnesses. I'd been in asset recovery for 23 years, but I'd never looked forward to a repo quite like this one. The kid had it coming. The rooftop of the Riverside condos had been transformed into something resembling a Hollywood premiere. Red carpet, professional lighting, a DJ booth with enough equipment to power a small concert, and catering stations that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Blake had spared no expense for his rise to the top celebration. I arrived at 7:30 p.m., 30 minutes before the official party start time. Mason was already there with the tow truck, parked strategically across the street with a clear view of the building's parking garage exit. Jo sat in her car nearby, laptop open, monitoring the bank's automated systems that would trigger Gerald's business audit the moment we logged the vehicle recovery. "Status report," I said into my phone, connecting to our group call. "Truck's ready, paperwork's perfect, and I've got a clear path to the garage," Mason reported. "Bank systems are standing by," Jo added. "The moment you confirm repo, Gerald's accounts get frozen and the audit team gets notified." "And I've got front row seats to the whole show," came a fourth voice. Devin had joined our call, speaking quietly from somewhere inside the building. "Devin, where are you?" "Blake's condo. He's getting ready for his big moment. Spent 2 hours on his hair alone." "Any sign that Gerald told him the truth?" "Negative. Blake's acting like he's about to become the next Elon Musk. He keeps talking about changing the game and showing everyone what real success looks like." I walked into the building's lobby, where Eileen Mott and the other condo board members were gathered around a table, reviewing documents. Eileen looked up as I approached. "Mr. Harrow, ready for tonight's festivities?" "As ready as we can be. You?" Eileen held up a thick manila folder. "Lease termination notice, documentation of policy violations, and a formal trespass warning. Blake's going to have 30 days to vacate the premises." "You're really going to serve him during his live stream?" "Mr. Harrow, Blake has spent months treating this building and its residents as props for his social media content. It seems only fitting that his eviction notice becomes part of that content as well." At 8 p.m. sharp, the party began. I took the elevator to the rooftop, where Blake was already in full performance mode. He'd set up multiple camera angles to capture every moment, and his phone showed a live viewer count climbing rapidly past 15,000. "Blake Squad, welcome to the most important night of my life," Blake shouted into his phone camera, the city skyline glittering behind him. "Tonight, I'm announcing something that's going to change everything, but first, let's party. The DJ started pumping music, and Blake began working the crowd like a seasoned politician. About 60 people had shown up in person, mostly other young influencers and social media personalities. They filmed everything, creating a cascade of content across multiple platforms. I positioned myself near the elevator, staying out of the main camera shots but maintaining a clear view of Blake's performance. Devin caught my eye from across the rooftop and gave a subtle nod. He was capturing everything from multiple angles. At 8:30, Blake called for everyone's attention. Okay, Blake Squad, it's time for the big announcement. The live viewer count had climbed to over 30,000. As you all know, I've been building something amazing over the past year. 50,000 followers, millions of views, and now... Blake paused for dramatic effect, grinning at his phone camera. Now I'm launching my own social media marketing company. Blake Voss Digital is going to revolutionize how brands connect with Gen Z audiences. And the best part? My father, Gerald Voss, is investing $500,000 to make it happen. The crowd erupted in cheers. The live chat exploded with congratulations and fire emojis. Blake was beaming, completely caught up in the moment. That's when Gerald appeared at the top of the elevator stairs. He looked terrible, pale, sweating, and clearly distressed. He tried to catch Blake's attention without disrupting the live stream, but Blake was too caught up in his performance to notice. "Dad!" Blake called out, spotting Gerald. "Everyone, there's my business partner, the man who believes in Blake Voss Digital." Gerald's face went white as Blake pulled him into the camera frame. 30,000 people were now watching a man who knew he was about to destroy his son's dreams on live television. "Dad, tell everyone about our amazing partnership," Blake said, holding the phone so both their faces were visible. Gerald opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked directly into the camera, then at Blake, then back at the camera. Gerald started, then stopped. "Come on, Dad, don't be shy." Blake laughed. "Tell them about the $500,000. That's when I decided it was time. I walked across the rooftop, approaching Blake's livestream setup. The crowd noticed me first. Several people pointed and whispered. Blake was still focused on trying to get his father to speak. "Excuse me, Blake," I said loudly enough for the phone's microphone to pick up. Blake spun around, his face going from confusion to recognition to anger in about 2 seconds. "You! What are you doing here? This is a private party." "Actually, it's a public event. You posted the invitation on social media." The live chat was going crazy now. Viewers were typing, "Who is that guy?" And "Why does Blake look scared?" And "Is that the car wash guy?" "Security!" Blake yelled. "Get this man out of here." "Blake," I said calmly, "I'm here on official business. My name is Rusty Harrow, and I'm a licensed asset recovery agent." The word repo appeared dozens of times in the live chat. The viewer count jumped to 40,000. "Your Porsche 911, license plate Blake 19, is currently 90 days past due on its loan payments. I'm here to repossess the vehicle." The rooftop went silent except for the music, which the DJ quickly turned off. Blake stared at me, his phone still streaming to 45,000 viewers. "That's impossible," Blake said. "My car is paid for. My dad's been handling the payments." I looked at Gerald, who was standing frozen behind his son. "Mr. Voss, would you like to explain the situation to your son?" Gerald's voice was barely a whisper. "Blake, I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" Blake's voice was rising. "Dad, tell this guy he's wrong. Tell him about the payments." "I can't, son. The payments stopped over a month ago." The live chat exploded. Blake's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally, dawning horror. "What do you mean the payments stopped?" "The business is broke, Blake. I'm broke. I've been trying to fix it, but..." Blake turned back to his phone camera, his performance mask completely shattered. "Chat, this is some kind of mistake. My dad's going to sort this out." That's when Mason appeared at the elevator, followed by Joe and Patricia from the bank. The crowd parted as they walked across the rooftop. "Mr. Voss," Patricia said, addressing Gerald, "I have some additional information you need to be aware of." She opened her folder and pulled out several documents. "Your son's vehicle registration is invalid due to fraudulent insurance documentation. The DMV has flagged the policy as part of a document forgery investigation." Blake's phone nearly slipped from his hands. "Fraudulent? What are you talking about?" "The insurance policy on your vehicle doesn't exist," Patricia continued. "The policy number belongs to a batch of documents that were reported stolen and used in fraudulent applications." "But I got that insurance online. The agent said..." "Blake," I interrupted. "The agent you dealt with was running a scam. You've been driving without valid insurance for months. The live viewer count hit 50,000. The chat was moving so fast it was unreadable, but I caught glimpses of fraud and fake and busted scrolling by. That's when Eileen Mott made her entrance. "Blake Voss," she announced in a voice that carried across the entire rooftop. "As president of the Riverside Condos Homeowners Association, I'm serving you with formal notice of lease termination." She walked directly into the camera frame and handed Blake an official document. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises due to repeated violations of community standards." Blake stared at the eviction notice as phones and cameras closed in, insisting it was a setup. Devin kept filming anyway, and Joe quietly dropped the real bomb. A clause in Blake's car loan meant the repo would trigger an automatic audit of Voss Holdings and freeze every business account. Gerald went pale as Blake's live stream exploded, tens of thousands watching in real time. With his hands shaking, Blake finally admitted the truth to his audience. The Porsche wasn't his, the investment was fake, and his dad's company was broke. He handed over the keys, grabbed a few personal items, and watched the tow truck haul away the symbol of his persona, while hashtags like Ams Hadraw Blake Voss Exposed started trending. Before ending the stream, he apologized, especially to the man he'd humiliated, realizing too late that real power doesn't flex online, it waits, then ends things cleanly in public.